Hello and welcome to another episode of Agency Leadership Live. I'm your host, Chip Griffin, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 books that I would suggest that just about every agency leader would benefit from reading. And of course, it is summertime, and despite the pandemic and everything else that's going on around us, we still have a desire to read and make things a little bit normal. So whether you're going to the beach or sitting on your back porch or by the pool or wherever it is that you like to read in the summer, these books I think will be of interest to you. They're both enjoyable to read, at least for those of you who like business books, and it's also something that will help you run your agency better and achieve your goals. So we'll talk about them in just a minute. Of course, as you know, we're here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Eastern Time live. Monday and Wednesday we have topical discussions, and then Friday it's Q&A. So if you're interested in seeing past episodes, just visit agencyleadership.tv. And while you're there, you, of course, can subscribe on YouTube so you get notified every single time we have a new video out. So with that, let's go ahead and we will jump into the first book that we have today. And so the first book that I wanted to recommend to you is one that we've talked about previously on the Agency Leadership podcast that Dietrich and I have, but it's also one that is mentioned a lot in agency circles, and it is Built to Sell by John Warrillow. Let me try not to cover up his name here and see if you can actually see the cover. So this is a book that was written a while back, and it's written in more of a storytelling fashion, which is something that makes for a nice, easy beach or poolside read. And it's about an agency owner and the journey that he follows as he realizes that he hasn't really built something that has sustainable value on its own. And so the book really looks at the kinds of things that you need to do in an agency if you want to sell it, but more importantly, even if you're not going to sell it, they're the kind of things that help you to scale your business and to take you as the agency owner out of some of that day-to-day grind that it tends to get a lot of agency owners that I know down and really just feeling frustrated. So it talks about putting together systems and processes. It talks about packaging up your services in a clear way. It talks about finding a niche for your offering and making sure that you are being very clear about the value that you're delivering and who you're delivering it to. And so there's a lot to take away from this book. And I think that in addition to it being an enjoyable read, one of the things that you'll find with all 5 of the books that I have here is that there's practical advice all the way throughout. And one of my big beefs, I don't know about you, but one of my complaints about a lot of business books are that they are magazine articles that ran amok. And frankly, a lot of books, business books, did start as a magazine article. It might have been a 3,000-word lengthy feature in a magazine back in the day when we all read the paper magazines with the long articles. Now, of course, it's all more snackable content online. But when we used to have those kinds of articles, sometimes a publisher would look at that article and say, hey, that could be a book. And they would then work with the writer to turn it into 200 pages of business book. All of these books that I'm recommending to you today have practical advice all the way throughout, things that you can apply to your agency today that will help to make it better. Now, I'm not saying that everything in every one of these books is something that I 100% agree with. In some places, they're going to disagree with each other, but that's one of the things that's valuable to you as you're reading these books. It gives you different perspectives, and it allows you to figure out what works right for your particular situation. And so I would really recommend Built to Sell by John Warrillow. He also has a great podcast where he talks with primarily with folks who have sold their own businesses. And it's not just in the agency space, although that's what the book focuses on. He talks with entrepreneurs who have built something that they've been able to then reap the rewards by selling it to someone else. Now, even though it's talking about building to sell, if you keep your agency yourself, and most of you will, I mean, that's one of the things that you need to think about here. There's a lot of discussion about selling your agency, but the vast majority of agencies are not sold. Nevertheless, if you build something that someone else wants to buy, it's probably something you want to own too. So, first book to pick up, Built to Sell, John Warrillow. And if you have any of your own suggestions, feel free to share them in the comments. If you're watching here with me live, feel free to share your feedback on any of the books that I mentioned, or make suggestions along the way, and I'll try to incorporate them as we go along today. All right, the second book that I want to talk about, this is one that's talked about by a lot of agency business folks, and this one is Traction by Gino Wickman. And in this book, he talks about something called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, the EOS. And this book is more of a traditional business book. It's got a bit more jargon in it. It is not the same as the John Warrillow book. It's not a story. It is practical advice. It talks about the systems that Gino recommends that you set up in your business. It talks in great detail about how to set employee goals, how to measure progress, how to have team meetings. It really gets into the weeds to give you some solid ideas for how you can structure all of the systems and processes that you have within your business. And I know a lot of you sit there and recoil at the thought of systems and processes. The agency world is full of creative, innovative types who say, gosh, I don't want to be bound into particular structures and meetings and all that. And this book is very good because it talks about how to make your meetings actually mean something. So it's not having meetings for meeting's sake. And we're all talking these days about Zoom fatigue. And as many of you know, I don't really believe in Zoom fatigue per se. It's not the medium. It's not video conferences. It's not the Zoom platform itself as much as it is that we have too many meetings that don't have a purpose and have the wrong people in them. And so Traction talks about how to structure your meetings appropriately, how to do strategic planning in a way that you're actually able to achieve your goals and move the needle. It's not just an exercise where you sit down once a year, put together a strategic plan, and then all of a sudden it's sitting on the shelf gathering dust for the next 12 months. Or, well, let's say 11 months, because a lot of you will stick with that strategic plan for a month or so before you give up on it. So Traction is really good at laying out those concrete steps that you can use. Now, there are a lot of agencies and a lot of agency consultants who fully embrace this and say, follow everything in the EOS system, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I would say there are bits and pieces that you can probably take. If you read it and you love it all, great. By all means, take it and use the whole system. But I think even if you decide that the whole system isn't for you, you will learn things that will help you to set up your agency business better, that will help you to achieve the goals that you're looking for. So that's the second book, Traction by Gino Wickman. And by the way, you'll notice that I have all of these in paper copy because I really like when I have business books to get paper copies and mark them up. I usually tag them with the little sticky strips that you can use to mark the pages. So while I read a lot on the Kindle and I prefer to read fiction books on the Kindle, business books I really like to have in hard copy form. All right, so the next book. This is one that is targeted squarely at agencies and consultants and anyone who is an expert. And that's the title of the book, The Business of Expertise by David C. Baker. And so David C. Baker is a consultant who's worked for agencies for, gosh, I think probably over 2 decades now. And he really works, he's very data-driven. He's been putting out some great content lately in the form of some free webinars where he walks through some of the challenges that agencies are having right now. But this book is really valuable, and you can see it's only about 200 pages. It's a nice, easy read. It's somewhere between the John Warrillow book and the Gino Wickman book in terms of how heavy it is. I would say I think of Traction as a fairly heavy book. I think of Built to Sell as very light, easy reading because of the style. And David C. Baker's book is somewhere in between those two. And in it, you'll also notice, by the way, that he loves illustrations. And if you read his blog, which also has lots of great content, they're generally, and I think he said that they start with an illustration that he works with someone to put together, and then he writes the article after he has the illustration. So idea, illustration, and then the writing. But this book is really nice because it talks about how to establish yourself as an expert, how to figure out how to position your firm, and you'll see it's full of color. So the table of contents here is actually on red paper or a red background, which is unique. And so he talks about how you categorize your expertise, not just in terms of the things that you do, but also who you serve. And it's really the intersection of those that brings your greatest value to your clients and the way that you're able to generate the best results for yourself. And so this is another book that's got some really great practical advice for you that I think you're going to find to be useful, and it's squarely focused on agencies, which is nice. The other thing about David C. Baker is he's got a podcast called Two Bobs with Blair Enns. That is great listening. Strongly encourage you to listen to that. The format that they use on that show is that they basically alternate on shows where they each interview each other about a particular topic, and it really brings out quite a lot. And sort of honorable mention, I feel bad that I've left out Blair Enns' book, Win Without Pitching, and actually I've got it back here. There it is. Win Without Pitching. Honorable mention, also a very good book, but I was trying to limit this to 5, so we're going to have to leave that in the honorable mention category. All right, next on the list is Doing It the Right Way by Rick Gould. And this one is available, and let's see, I'm trying to get it to focus here on camera. There we go, I'm not too good at this. I will never replace Vanna White for a lot of reasons. In any case, so Rick Gould he is a specialist in agency M&A, primarily PR and marketing agencies, and based in New York. Really good guy, puts out lots of great research particularly on PR agencies and how they're structured and fee structures and billing rates and all that kind of stuff. But this is probably, of the books that I'm recommending today, this is probably the most directly practical and applicable to agencies. And even though he has primarily a PR lens, there's a lot in here, no matter what kind of agency you might be, as long as you're a fee-based agency. So, that could be a digital agency, a creative agency, PR, doesn't matter. If you're listening, this is probably a good book for you to look at. And it's focused on the M&A side of running an agency. And like the John Warrillow book, Built to Sell, a lot of what he talks about is useful even if you never sell your agency, even if you never really seriously entertain the idea. But in here, he goes through and talks specifically about the kinds of financial reporting that you should be doing. He talks about how you should be structuring your business. He talks about the ins and outs of the M&A process. So if you are approached about selling your agency, and frankly, most successful agencies do get approached from time to time about selling or merging with another business. And if you do, this walks through all of the steps in that process that you can expect, so that you know what you're getting into, you know the questions that buyers are going to ask. If you are entertaining the idea of selling your business at some point, he talks about the things that will motivate potential buyers and the things that you need to be thinking about. Because if you might sell your business, you need to be thinking about that 3 years ahead of time. Because when someone comes in and they make an offer for your business, they're typically going to look back at 3 years of financials, 3 years of the performance of your business to see how your agency has been doing. And so you want to be thinking about that now to make sure that you've got everything in order. But again, just like with Built to Sell, you may manage to build your business in such a way by reading all of these books that you decide that it's not worth selling because you are so happy with the business that you've created and the profits that you're able to generate. And that's really, to me, the ideal scenario, that you love what you're doing, that you're making good money doing it, and you wake up every day excited. So, Rick Gould, Doing It the Right Way. Now, the 5th book. This is, I believe this is the oldest of the books that I've got to recommend to you today. This one, I know the publication date because I looked it up earlier this week because I mentioned it on Monday's show, and it is Duct Tape Marketing by John Jantsch. Terrible time pronouncing things today. But in any case, so Duct Tape Marketing, famous small business marketing book. John's a great guy. He's published a bunch of books. He has some newer ones out, but this one has really stood the test of time. Published in 2006, So there's a few things in here from a technology standpoint that will be a little bit dated, but the vast majority of what's here still holds up really well. And it's a practical, step by step, all of the kinds of things that you should be thinking about as you are marketing your agency business to potential clients. And it walks you through in a very practical way. And you can see here from my copy of the book, you probably can see there, it's kind of yellowed because it's old. I've had this since it was first published. It is really great at walking through all of the techniques that you can use to market your business. And it talks about the pros and cons of each. It gives you some practical ideas of how to put together your marketing plans, how to measure its success. And so even if you are not a marketer by trade, you have to be thinking about how to market your agency. You have to be thinking about how you get in front of folks, because it's not just about the direct outreach that you're doing. And I know most of you hate doing cold calling, and so you'll be very pleased to know that all of these books give you plenty of ideas on how you can grow your business without cold calling. And the truth is that cold calling doesn't work. You need to have an opportunity to reach out to people who you've been able to learn about effectively before you talk to them. Hopefully they've had a chance to learn about you as well. And duct tape marketing is really helpful as far as helping you to figure out how to get in front of the right people at the right time. Because fundamentally, that's how you grow your business. You have to be building awareness of you and your expertise, going back to David C. Baker's book. You need to have the systems and processes in place, going back to Traction. You need to have the vision of how you're going to get to something that is sustainable, going back to the Built to Sell book. And you have to have all of the fundamental reports and such in place, looking at Rick Gould's book. So all of these things tie together to give you the tools and ammunition that you need to build your agency into what you want it to be in the future, that delivers the results that will help you to achieve your own personal goals. Because as I've said over and over again, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an agency owner, there is no reason to take on the risk of running your own business, to take on all of that stress and pressure, unless you are building something that helps you to achieve what you want. And so if you read these books, it's not a surefire thing. It's not guaranteeing success, but all 5 of these books will contribute to the knowledge that you need in order to be more successful. So as you're thinking about what to read this summer and over the next 6 or 8 weeks or so, as we sort of go through this unusual period of time, if you're sitting by the pool or at the beach, hopefully you will find these books to be both enjoyable and useful. Of course, if you are interested in seeing more of these, or if you missed some of this and you want to go back and watch later, you can always visit our YouTube channel at agencyleadership.tv. Subscribe and hit the notification button to make sure you don't miss out on anything. And we've got lots of additional resources at the Agency Leadership website. And you can go to the agencyleadership.com/join link to join the free Agency Leadership Council, which gives you access to additional resources and our Slack channel for agency leaders to discuss topics of interest and get help from one another, all at no cost. So with that, we're going to bring this episode of Agency Leadership Live to a close. We'll be back here on Friday, or I'll be back here on Friday. Hopefully you will be too. Friday is Q&A, so if you've got a question that you'd like me to answer, you can use the Ask Chip functionality on the Agency Leadership website, or email me at chip@agencyleadership.com, or even better, show up live, share your thoughts and questions in the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer whatever questions you may have. Noon Eastern Time on Friday. I'll see you right back here.